Seeds are the foundation of human and animal life on earth. Whoever that controls your seed controls your life, as you heard on that. Now, the second thing I want to establish is that you are what you eat. The third one is let your food be your medicine. That's what the father of medicine, Hippocrates, said to us. Then we need to also look at the food labeling. These are the issues on this GMO debate. We look at the food labeling, we look at another one that nobody seems to talk about, the glyphosate. Now, what are GMOs? We've talked so much about what are GMOs, and you heard the guy talk about transgenic modification. The danger that we have is not, a lot of times when you talk about this, they tell you, oh, you're anti-science, you're not supporting biotechnology. We love biotechnology. We want to grow with technology as technology is growing. But the problem we have is what we're doing in Nigeria and in some other places. But I want to focus on Nigeria. Nigeria is my country. I love my country. Yeah. And another thing I also want to correct, when we talk about GMOs, people want to politicize it. This has nothing to do with President Tinubu. This has nothing to do with APC. It's important that we don't lose focus. Food concerns everybody. All of us, we eat food. Now, GMOs in Nigeria, we're talking about transgenic. When you cross organisms that are taxonomically different, you have a problem. What am I saying? When you take, let's keep it at layman's, forget all the scientific stuff. When you take genes from an animal and put inside a plant, you're already breaking the boundaries of nature. Ethically, that is wrong. In a normal situation, a fish cannot mate tomato. But we are breaking these boundaries in the name of science. And what people are not talking about is, okay, what will be the outcome in future? Because when you talk, they tell you, oh, I run a hospital and I know the kind of diseases we see on a daily basis. Now, you're not going to literally link, oh, this person, like this 18-year-old boy that is hypertensive, you're not going to say, oh, it's because he ate GMO. Nobody's going to buy that. I mean, in terms of research and all that, okay? But we need to now look at glyphosate. If I take your blood samples now to the lab, I can promise you, that I can get the glyphosate residues in your blood samples. And I encourage Nigerians. That's why, when people come to the clinic, okay, hold on. Hold on. I encourage, when people come to the clinic, we do your nutritional profile. These are not conventional questions people ask you when you go to the hospital. I want to know what you have eaten in the past 2 weeks. There's a reason for that. When I know what you have eaten in the past 2 weeks, if you have fed mostly on junk food, what do I mean by junk food? Fast food and all that, made from all this imported corn, soy food and all that, I can assure you 89% that you have glyphosate residue in your system. Now the question is this, what is glyphosate? Glyphosate is the pesticide, herbicide, whichever one you want to use, that is used for growing GMO crops. Okay? Now,
so is it specifically for GMO? Is it just a broad spectrum?
Now, what is going on is that farmers are now using it to kill weeds.
So it's not just farms. For GMO?
You must use it if you're planting GMO crops.
But they also use it for non-GMO crops.
Nigerians, they are using it for their farms now, okay? But the organic farmers, I don't use Roundup containing. It should not be used. It should not be used. Why? And I'm going to tell you why. Number one, before I get to that, GMOs, I tell people, are pesticides. Why do I say that? There's a definition. What are pesticides? Pesticides are an enormous group of chemicals designed to kill unwanted insects, insecticides, weeds, herbicides, rodents, and fungi. Many pesticides endanger human health or damage ecosystem, creating risk for companies to buy or produce food and other crops. Now, GMOs, for instance, the beans we just released, they are modified to produce their own pesticides so that the pests that attack plants will not eat that. Now, that might sound good in terms of, growing the beans and all that, because of the implication to human health. Any plant that can produce its own insecticide or pesticide is automatically a pesticide. So, these plants, in a normal situation, cannot pass through NAFDAC regulation definition of food. And that is why it is not NAFDAC that is regulating GMO foods. It's another agency, because if NAFDAC,
the National Biosafety
Management Agency. Now, the danger in that is this: NAFDAC, they have their clear definition of food. So you cannot come now and start telling us that the GMO beans is food, when there's a clear definition of what a pesticide is.
So I want to ask you a question,
Okay.
because you spoke about
Transgenic modification.
Modification, and you said yes.
Bring transgender.
No, not that. No, but we're talking about science and
Yes, exactly.
advancements in science and what might be good or what might be bad. Because I think because for me, my understanding of the issue with GMO here is that if you don't control your seeds, you don't control your future. And we have seen so many areas, whether it's yam yields or even now ginger, very popular online, where people are getting poor yields, and it's part of but it's also part of our tradition in Nigeria, right? Is that you harvest the biggest, juiciest yams or ginger, and then you use the small ones for seed. And so what we have seen in Nigeria is that we have been planting the smallest ones over and over generations, and so we're getting smaller yields as the years go by. And that's why GMO is here, right? To try and plug a gap, because we're not food secure. But you spoke about fish and tomatoes, and that's why I was thinking about this, because of course we use fish skin when you have burn victims, right? And so we've seen that if you have burns, they take fish skins and they put it on human beings, and this is a breakthrough. Rather than even using some drugs, it's more effective to put fish skin on human beings who have suffered from burns. So for me, I'm wondering when you consider something as harmful or not harmful. Obviously, when it comes to broad spectrum herbicides or when it comes to pesticides, we see those have environmental impacts and health impacts down the line. But when it comes to gene therapy, gene therapy is also what helps with sickle cell, right? And what helps with the cure for sickle cell is gene therapy. So when do these modifications, when do they become against nature and completely bad? How do you differentiate between what's bad and good?
Okay, that's, I started by saying that the problem is all with the biotechnology. There are advances in medicine that is beneficial, okay? A lot of the fermentation products we use, kunu, beer and all that, they are products of biotechnology, okay? Like I said, the problem here is the one in our food. The one who controls your food. Insulin, for instance, is a product of biotechnology, and you know how much it has helped save the lives of people with diabetes. Now, transgenic modification of our foods is where the problem is. Apart from crossing species that are not taxonomic, normally, if like in our farm, we save seeds. When you see seeds that are not doing well, you can cross the species to get a higher yield. But where you are now taking genes from an animal and putting in plants, there are so many implications on health, ethical implications, because, for those of us who are Christians, every seed, every plant must reproduce after its own kind. So I can cross corn with a corn, no problem. I can cross two tomato species, the one that is doing well and the one that is not doing well, to get a better yield. But where I have to take genes, for instance, from a pig and put inside a plant, there's a problem. It is against the law of nature, and we are so much aware that every law of nature you obey has a reward. Every one you disobey comes with consequences, and the consequences is part of what we're seeing in our soil degradation. I know how many times we had to improve on our soil before we could bring it to where we are now to call it to say it's organic. Because the reality is this: as you're splashing glyphosate everywhere, of course, there's no way it's not going to affect farms nearby you. And our laws are also very weak. In some countries like Germany, for instance, if your GMO plant contaminates, your GMO farm contaminates a non-GMO farm, you pay a heavy fine running into millions of dollars. So farmers are very careful. Do I want to go ahead with this?
I was going to ask you, because you started earlier by saying that this is not political, this is not about Tinubu's government.
Yes.
But then we also know that there were interventions in the past by way of bills in 2001, in 2004, even into 2019 when Buhari was there. But then people think that in the last 2 years or 2.5 years, the old GMO thing has become sort of commercialized, and that there is easy inroad for the proponents of GMOs to have easier access. How can it therefore not be political if this is what we're dealing with?
Okay, let me tell you, let me take you back a little bit. When we started this campaign during the Jonathan administration, okay, we had a star boy of the administration, okay, the agriculture person, the agriculture minister then in charge, Dr. Adeshina.
Dr. Adeshina.
Okay, he was the one who quietly brought in GMOs into the country. Okay, people were not aware of how these things quietly snuck into the, sneaked into Nigeria, into the ecosystem. Our cassava.
Yeah, I thought it was cassava bread we were talking about.
No. Yes, where is that cassava bread today?
No.
Now, it will shock you to realize that, almost all the cassava you eat, at least over 60%, they are GMOs. Because it started from that time. Farmers were being given these things free of charge. Now, you remember the telephone to monitor farmers, that
became scandalous.
I don't even know what happened to it. Now, what happens is this. In GMO planting, farmers are supposed to be registered, because the seeds, you don't replant the seeds. I have planted GMO beans and I have tried to replant it, because some of these things, you don't just start talking from theory. You need to be there, hands-on.
Yeah.
Now, when you replant the seeds, it gives you beautiful leaves, no beans. So this is what has continued. So the whole idea is that you have to go back and keep buying the seeds. In so many countries, this has affected a lot of farmers. Now, the question you now need to ask, who are the owners of these seeds? No Nigerian owns any seed that we're planting. It belongs to foreigners.
Yeah, the multinationals
so
that are
the question is this: why do we have to put our lives, because like I said, seed is a starting, it's like your life. Why do we have to put our lives in the hands of foreigners? Does it make any sense? For instance, the teller maize that was released last year, I'm trying to make you understand that it didn't just start today. Okay, it was released officially last year or thereabout, or I think last year. Teller maize belongs to Monsanto. Okay.
Yeah.
If you check the documents on that teller maize, it has MON. One of our MON means Monsanto and the numbers following it. Okay, you have a lot of these products. They don't belong to anyone in Nigeria.
But they did talk about labeling, though, to say that they will make sure that people can choose what they want to eat.
You all go to the to shops. Have you ever seen any shop in Nigeria? GMO, non-GMO, nobody is labeling nothing.
No.
So what I encourage people to do is this: take your life in your hands. Because you see, when you go into a supermarket, for instance, you will see all the foods made with genetically engineered food, genetically engineered ingredients and all that. They're already here with us. They are here to stay. Now, you talk about labeling as per the BT corn, the cowpea and all that. Who is labeling what? Look at how we sell things in Nigeria. You go to Otaku market, or you go to... Do they have...
Dr. Jackie, can I bring a practical experience
Yes,
here so
yes.
that you can, if you're able to confirm, when we go to parties, especially all those high-class, parties, and they bring all those like platter-like, big plates with half corn on them, are they the type that we're talking about?
That's where the problem is, because there's no way you can know. We're talking about labeling.
Yes.
What you have... Like they'll tell you that they labeled the seeds, but the food what actually got us very upset in Nigeria. In some countries, when they're starting the GMOs, they start with the peaches, they start with the apples, they start with but in Nigeria, they started with the staple food, the one that everybody eats.
Rice, beans.
Cassava, beans, maize, which, every newborn, when you are weaning, maize is one of the foods you start them with. So they started with our staple foods, and that is we need to apply some breaks, okay? Just like the House of Reps requested, let's put this on hold. Let's even understand what is going on, because you see, what did Monsanto, for example, has over 100,000 litigations in the US, and they are paying, okay? Because people developed cancer, and it was proven. That is the US now.
Yeah,
okay.
So can we hone in on this?
Yes.
Because I believe the Monsanto cases are around the herbicide, right? That you mentioned before, that if you take our blood, you'll find this herbicide. Right, it's not about the GMO crops itself, it's about the herbicide that's being used.
No, they are linked. No,
yes, I know, but I want to hone in on this herbicide issue, right?
Yes.
Because beyond the herbicide you mentioned earlier and this Monsanto cases, because I believe it's non-Hodgkin's lymphoma that they said that resulted from the use of these herbicides. But in Nigeria, we're using not just those herbicides, but other herbicides. My mom is also an organic farmer, right? So and I know that
she's not using
she's an organic farmer. She's
Excellent.
not using these things. But what I'm saying is that, and you see videos beyond the use of herbicides to grow plants. I've seen videos of people using herbicides to prevent weevils from getting into their beans and rice. So that means they're directly applying pesticides to our food in market so that they do not spoil. Even sniper. Yes, I've seen some images of this. Now, considering that, right, that we have exposure to so many dangerous chemicals and that all these things are not regulated, I'm wondering why the focus on GMO when the issues that we have on ground are so serious. As you said, an 18-year-old can come to your hospital with hypertension. Mm-hmm. We have not dealt with any of this, exposure to pesticides, herbicides, harmful chemicals, tobacco in public spaces. We have so many issues we have not dealt with at all. Mm-hmm. So how can we even test for, is GMO going to affect us in future when we haven't dealt with what we have on ground today?
No, these things are linked. They are linked. But the challenge is that, someone is trying to, like how people divert your attention. Like, this is not the problem, okay? They are linked. Roundup Ready pesticides, they are meant, like for GMOs. You cannot grow GMO plants. And the reality now is this. Every farmer that grows conventional foods, they use different types of herbicides. But what we're talking about is the active ingredients in the herbicide, which is the glyphosate. So whether they are using Madam A herbicide or Madam B herbicide, a lot of those, the active ingredient is glyphosate. Now, why are we now linking it to GMO? Because some farmer might decide to plant their hybrid plants and still use the herbicide containing glyphosate. But the genetic modification, because that's like a double-barrel problem, okay? Like you rightly said, we have not finished dealing with the chemicals and all that these people are applying to foods using sniper. Now somebody is bringing another technology.
But I would like you to, because we're about to wrap this up, I'd like you to touch on the fact that this issue came about as a result of issues around food security, right? What is the alternative? Because if we're saying we're not going to do GMO, it doesn't stop the fact that Nigeria is in a dire position and we need to produce more. So what alternative are we now saying, as opposed to GMO, this is what we need to do?
Correct, because the regulator did say that we can't survive without the GMOs because we really can't meet up with the demands.
No, those are politics. If you understand, if you're a farmer and if you are also like in that sector, you understand that food shortage is not our problem. Okay, we can grow our food. We need to support farmers with access to healthy seeds. We need to support them with access to infrastructure. You have a farmer, it's a lot of waste, post-harvest losses. They grow their foods, and because they don't have, you just take a trip to any of the markets. The way they waste tomatoes because no storage facilities. Do you understand? So our problem is not food shortage. Anybody that tells you the problem is food shortage is either ignorant or the person is telling us a lie.
I'm confused here.
Yes, talk to me.
We don't so because we do have shortages, right? For example, the ginger issue that has been coming up because people are now seeing importation of ginger from right? But we have had the ginger disease. I'm asking this because yes, we have post-harvest loss, we have poor infrastructure, we have poor storage. Our electricity problems means we can't freeze food. We can't, all of those things. But even palm oil, we import palm oil because we don't produce enough, and we also have shortage because of insecurity in the North Central. So I'm not saying
that we have the capacity to
we have the capacity, but we have shortage right now.
No. Listen to these conversations. These conversations. A lot of time the time is so short because I can take time and give you what is happening with the ginger. It's pure sabotage. There's a lot going on that people need to be aware of. pure sabotage.
Quickly tell us.
Yes. No. There's no quickly there. We need to.
As of right now, you're saying that as opposed to paying attention to the GMOs, the investment that's going into this needs to go into what we currently have: building infrastructure, storage facilities,
access to finance to farmers, and of course letting farmers. Another thing that is very important: the National Biosafety Management Agency. They should be honest and open enough to tell people this is GMO, this is not GMO,
all right,
so that people can have a choice and decide, okay, I want to eat this or I don't want to eat this.
I don't want to eat this.
Yeah. All right.
Fantastic conversation. That was interesting.
Thank you. I mean, interesting debates, and I agree with you that we should have had more time, but of course we have other guests lined up. But thanks for coming anyway.
Thank you
I
so
hope that
much.
we do have you again.
Thank you.